Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of Yellowjackets Season 2, Episode 3, Digestif, directed by Jeff W. Bird and written by Sarah L. Thompson and Amini Rosa. So this episode, to me, reminded me a lot of Twin Peaks, and the show is definitely inspired by Twin Peaks and like a mix of Lost, but this really led me to really see the Twin Peaks comparisons. You got this snowy wilderness, of course, but also these TV static transitions that are a lot like the intro that we're seeing here play with Ben, which I thought was interesting. And there's an eerie quietness to these transitions that's very Twin Peaks. And also, adult Misty, I hadn't mentioned this in the opening credits. The shot with her with the red background was very, very Twin Peaks. And even this scene we get in this episode with the two Thaisas talking to each other in the mirror with adult Thaisa was super duper Twin Peaks. So I just wanted to bring that up because I haven't really mentioned that in my previous reviews, but this one felt the most Twin Peaks to me. So I'm going to break this review into different parts of the episode, and this time I want to actually start with everything going on with the past, and I in particular want to start with everything going on with the past with Coach Ben. But even before getting into that, please subscribe. I'm trying to get this Rotten Tomatoes credential. I got to hit 30K subs. I really appreciate it. This is another competitive show, so any help I can get with sharing, mentioning it even on the Yellowjackets Reddit, whatever you could do to help me, I really appreciate it. Now, I love the show has just ramped up the horror this season. That is my favorite thing about this season so far, where they always teased it in the first season, where this show is really just pushing it up, which I like. And that's really shown here with this opening shot with bloody Jackie's hand, and it's cutting between shots like that with the traumatized Ben. We're actually seeing the Ben that's at the end of the episode sitting laying down, who looks like this man is about to do something bad to himself, like give up. I really thought when we saw that hint about the birds committing suicide that they were going to show us Ben had killed himself. I'm surprised that didn't happen. And I mean, what a match cut here in the editing where they show him thinking about everybody eating Jackie, and it's literally the cut of Jackie's body as a feast cutting to a bowl of clam chowder, leading us to Coach Ben's flashback with his boyfriend Paul. Now, I have mixed feelings about this because as you see in the previously on for this episode, they even show when Ben had said to Nat that he had a boyfriend who wanted to live with him in New York. I feel like a lot of this flashback was just showing us what we already knew. So that kind of felt redundant a little bit here. It does work in the sense that it's showing you his regret and thinking about how he didn't stay with Paul, and that it was sad and tragic that he couldn't live the life he wanted to live out of the closet, and how it just was a decision he's always going to regret to this day, and where he ended up now in the wilderness and still living in the closet as this soccer coach. But I don't know if that payoff there justifies having a whole flashback about information we already knew, just kind of seeing it. So I wasn't crazy about this. But it's also interesting to note how hungry Ben is because he hasn't eaten anybody. And I don't know if he's going to survive out there. And you have him seeing in his hallucination, probably caused by starvation, seeing Jen foaming at the mouth here. So he's losing it here. I don't know how much longer Ben is going to last unless he starts eating people. And it's also interesting, too, what I love about the show I've mentioned is even him hallucinating Jen with the foaming mouth again could be him seeing this kind of evil spirit that's appearing to people, or it's hallucinations. Who knows with this show, but I like it. But again, I don't know how necessary this flashback was, as we just didn't learn much from it. And it's unfortunate because we want to know more about Coach Ben. He's one of the very underwritten characters in the show that we need to learn more about to kind of get him up in the character ranks and caring about his character. So I thought that was part of this, but I don't know how much it actually helped at the end of the day. So with the rest of the characters here in the past, we see the reaction to eating Jackie, and Ty's the one freaking out the most, telling us too that it was Ty in a trance who ate Jackie. And Van's like, we ate her. And she's like, Ty, you ate her face. That was just a great line. And Ty's reaction is great. That was just intense. But you see Lottie has some really important lines to Shauna here. She's like, it's what she would have wanted. Talking about Jackie. Maybe not for the rest of us, but for the baby. That's the first time she refers to baby as him, which Shauna will catch the second time. So what does Lottie know that we don't about her visions with the baby, right? And it being a boy. We'll see if she's right. But Shauna says she also wanted to, so she feels so effed up right now. Again, Shauna's such a complicated character, such a great character. And I saw that, I think it was Vanity Fair wrote an article about her being this very powerful anti-hero on TV. And I never really looked at it that way yet as anti-hero per se, but I really feel that with going on present day Shauna, which we're going to get to. But you see Lottie's like, you can't blame yourself. We all did it together. So this is very, what religions do, spirituality does with this communal thought that justifies, right? And it helps people do things. Just in general, why the group therapy works, right? Is that something communal helps. So it's just, she doesn't feel as crazy about what they just did because they all did it. Where I don't know if any of them could have processed if it was just them alone. Even though, looking back, Shauna did eat her ear without anybody else. So there's that. But you see Lottie's like, you're going to be a great mom and we're all going to be here to help you. We should do something to welcome him. So Lottie has this intuition that things are going to work out with the baby here. And she wants to have a baby shower, this messed up baby shower. And I laugh too when she suggests this, that just in the background, they always have funny things going on with Crystal and Misty. I think the last episode they were having a sword fight. And now this episode, Crystal's like sitting on Misty and doing her hair. I thought that was great. Also, that's interesting. We're talking about background characters here. Akila has this conversation with Ty where she says she will do anything to be back at home and be an aunt. So that's just giving a little clarification to character motivation for Akila, and that we see at the end of the episode, it's really getting more and more drawn to stand who is Team Lottie, like the loyal devotees. And you see that with Misty, Van, Akila, and Mari, and this really explained why Akila would go that way. I also thought it was interesting, speaking of Mari, that Mari ears dripping when she's holding this like weird dream catcher she made, and no one else hears it. Interesting. I want to hear your guys' theories about that, and does that have to do with the dream catcher she made? That's just why she's hearing this dripping, and what is that dripping? Also, interesting thing you got to catch that kind of goes really quick through this is that Misty had an idea to use Jackie as bone broth to eat, and no one really wanted to do that except Crystal. And they also chat about how the human meat wasn't that bad. And remember in early season 1 where we see the timeline really in Deep Winter, how much Misty's smiling eating the meat. Like, Misty clearly likes the taste of human. And Crystal talks about how she absorbed her identical twin in the womb, and she channels her twin when she acts, and she encourages Misty she can do this and become someone else, as acting is. So Misty, maybe she's tapping into Jackie's confidence here and how she performs so well this scene later on from Steel Magnolias. Also, I like this line. Crystal says that her acting coach told her that the biggest truth of all about us is we are all made of lies. This is a great little meta thing to me, because I think what makes this show's writing so strong is that it writes characters who are liars. Everyone is constantly lying in this show to each other. And that's something big belief on good writing, is that great characters are written as liars because it's truth in how we are. But I love when she does her monologue. Ty has this great line. Did she really choose a scene about a dead daughter at this messed up baby shower? I thought that was great. But to surprise of everybody, she's actually amazing. Now we'll go back to the baby shower in a second, but I want to jump over to what Nat's doing and how she's burying Jackie's bones. Just an important line where she says to Jackie that she thinks Jackie's lucky here. And it's going into Nat's guilt about already eating Jackie, and that she doesn't feel maybe totally cut out for doing all this messed up stuff right away. And she says, I think shit is going to get a lot worse out here. And she says, I'm sorry for what we did, but who knows, eating you could be the reason we survive the winter. So there is that side of Nat too that kind of gets it. Now it's interesting, she sees this white moose. It reminds you of the bear that Lottie saw, and Lottie can kind of tame. So probably could have used Lottie in this situation, but with the symbolism of white moose, it's good luck to see one, which Nat does, but it's bad luck to kill one. So it's good she didn't kill it. But it's also not great she didn't kill it because it needs some food, right? What I also liked is that the story is moving along with Van and Ty at a nice pace. In the past timeline, I like she stayed up and is curious about Ty now and follows the trance Ty. But you see this Ty in a trance says, the one with no eyes shows me where to go. Only when she lets me. Talking about Thaisa. So this person talking through Ty, it must be this some sort of evil spirit, because that's when Van's like, who are you then? And this evil spirit trance Ty, let's say, who's possessed, according to this logic, brings her to the symbol on the tree. So this possessed spirit is connected to this symbol and follows around the man with no eyes. This is important too, because Van now knows about this more and more. She's learning about what's going on with Ty. And I think it's really going to set up well the Van in present day. I'm very excited to see what goes on with adult Van. Now back at the baby shower, Lottie puts this symbol on the baby blanket she gives a gift to Shauna. Lottie thinks that the symbol, because it was on this dead corpse, he was using the symbol as protection. And this is an important scene because, again, this shows you that this logic is defended by Mari, Akila, and Misty. But what's interesting is Shauna's nose bleeds while the symbol is touching her on her leg. So there's a connection there. And then the birds fall from the sky. Little tropey at this point, but fine. It's always a sign of doom is on its way. And it makes sense that the song here playing is Bells for Her by Tori Amos was the second song she got to close the show out, like Cornflake Girl in episode 1. But in these lyrics, she's saying can't stop what's coming, can't stop what's on its way. So it makes sense with the birds falling. And it also has this line about blanket friends. And you got a blanket here with Shauna and the situation with her and Jackie and their friendship. So the song definitely works. And it's important, like I had mentioned, everyone that is Team Lottie putting birds in front of her to Lottie as a blessing. We'll get into what was going on, though, that it's cutting between present day Lottie when we get to that. So let's switch over now, just in general in this episode, to the present day story with Lottie and Natalie. I'm honestly a little surprised Nat is still at this place and not running away, but I get it also because she's also kind of already falling under Lottie's spell a bit, and maybe she's just curious to what's actually going on here. I'm surprised she's even drinking the drinks Lottie's given her, to be honest. But I love they're, putting some new questions in the present day to make present day more interesting, right? Like, Lottie's got the mystery shed with the antlers on it, so that's a big theory it's going to happen now, is what is in that shed. I like those kind of mysteries, so I'm fine with introducing that. Now, important lines here is with this beehive Lottie has. She has a couple beehives, and she talks about the queen, right? In winter, they cluster around the queen and vibrate to keep her warm. That's what's happening in the past timeline, and the queen is Lottie. But Lottie says when a new queen hatches, the first thing she does is sting all the other unborn queens to death. It isn't brutal, it's natural, it's what has to be done, otherwise they starve. So this is a lot to pack in here, and again, it goes into what Lottie's doing in the past. But I think it's important with the final scene with Lottie as an adult, because there's blood on her hands. She has this hallucination with the bees being dead, that this could be guilt she feels for what maybe happens to some of her loyal people from the past that she couldn't protect. And it could also be looked at maybe in the present day that there's a new queen coming and it ain't her. So there's a lot of ways you can look at it. But I also like that with the color of her costume, that it is the Yellowjacket color with the black and the yellow, because she is the queen bee. And speaking of costume, I thought it was interesting. In the last scene, Natalie actually is wearing the heliotrope shawl for a bit. She takes it off, but to me it's showing she is falling a bit for this. Not fully, but a little. And it's important, this scene with Lisa, who is the septum piercing girl, because Lisa truly believes she saved Natalie. So whatever Lottie's intentions are, there are people under Lottie that believe they're doing good. So I don't think Lisa's bad. I don't think she's making a call to kidnap Natalie. I think she does believe she's saving her. And that's why when she's given the fork, if you feel need to hurt Natalie back, I want you to do it, Lisa ends up hugging her. Now, I don't know what Lottie's intentions were there. I don't know what Lottie truly believes, but I do know we could see that I think Lisa is just a good person. If Lottie's up to no good, to be someone you can kind of trust. So I think she's just more of the brainwash type in the cult. But it's interesting in that hallucination Lottie had, because it is a hallucination, because the bees were fine once this woman shows up to her. And it's also weird that the woman who showed up to her was speaking French. She heard her in French while she was still hallucinating, and then it's English when she's out of the hallucination. So what does the French have to do with that? Or if this is even the evil spirit? Again, there's a lot to just unpack and kind of guess about what's supernatural, what's real, what's not real, what's hallucinations, what's a ghost, etc. But I love the show always plays with you with that. So we only get a little bit of present day Ty here, and it makes sense because she had a lot of screen time the last episode, but Ty's just still bugging out. She's bugging out with Simone in the hospital, and she drew the symbol on her hand. So this episode's Ty's having is just a lot now. Her eyes are redder than ever, and we see the two Tys talking to each other in the mirror. So this could be that entity, that spirit that possesses her, the him. And that possessed spirit's mouthing, go to her. What's the her? And then Ty's like, what do you want? And then she kind of pins her eye. So everything with eyes has to do with Ty, so I wonder what that means. Why does it want Ty's eye? And could the go-to her mean Lottie? Who really knows, but I'd love to hear your theories on that. But it's also important, too, that she calls Jessica Roberts. I was so happy to see this. I said I want them to address this. We have to see how that maybe clashes with Ty and Misty's relationship now when she finds out that Misty tried to kill Jessica Roberts. So I'm interested to see what happens with that. Because remember, Ty was paying Jessica Roberts under her to investigate what every other Yellowjacket was talking about. Now let's go to everything going on with present day Misty. Now she goes to the boat dock to play FBI agent with Walter, but the twist is that the motel person that Walter was on to that might have known what happened to Natalie is Randy. Randy would recognize Misty, so Misty has to do this all through the phone. I also think it's interesting that when they're on the boat, Walter says, you never know when you might need to leave the country, sans passport, talking about why he has that boat. So let's just remember that, because I'm thinking somebody's going to have to get out of the country at some point, probably the end of this season. and they're going to use that boat. Now, it's interesting that Randy is shocked that he's brought in to talk about Natalie and not about Jeff, because remember, he knows about what Jeff did, and he's one of the few people that know everything that goes on with Shauna and Jeff in that situation. So it's interesting because this is scary because Walter's close to the Adam case, so it's surprising that Walter doesn't even realize that he should have just pecked at that to get answers about that, but I'm sure he's marking that down, and that will come back at some point for Walter. But I gotta say, as this was a humorous scene they were going for, clearly, I wasn't feeling it. I thought the actor of Randy was way overdoing it. Just wasn't landing for me. It was just too over the top. But after this whole situation, and they learn about Natalie being around people with this purple outfits on, so it's gonna lead Misty more to getting to that group and where Natalie is. The important scene is when she really talks to Walter, and Walter says, why are you downvoting my Adam Martin posts? And she says, I'm friendly with Adam's mother. Prob took his own life. I definitely think Walter's too smart and not buying this. And then Walter admits he didn't really bring his mother to meet Misty with somebody else. So she's like, why did you do all that to meet me? And Misty's now starting to get in a trance over Walter. Even when he texts her about the credit card information where they have to go next, like, it excites her to do another hunt with him. But this is Misty's, like, flaw, right? This is what could screw up Misty being on her game, protecting them with the whole Adam secret, because she's going to start falling for Walter, clearly. And I think Walter is playing her, but at the end of the day, I think Misty's obviously going to outplay him. But at first, she's going to kind of feel trapped under him because she actually likes him. But I think he's completely playing her here and knows that she's somehow covering something up with Adam. Now, Shauna's present-day storyline's never really been my favorite in the show's timeline, but I actually really liked it this episode. I thought it was very strong. And just with the humor, Jeff is always great. Best moment here is at the diner when he says it was the strawberry lube, and the waiter hears that and just turns around, and that was great. And Jeff is reflecting on his frustration, right, about feeling like he doesn't satisfy Shauna enough. He's too vanilla. But they get it out in the open about, why she slept with Adam. But she's like, it was exciting, sure, but it made me feel like I didn't know what was going to happen. I like that. I like not feeling like this boring version of me. And this can also be said about Shauna's mindset about why she screwed Jeff back in the day behind Jackie's back. This is a thrill she feels. This is also why I just don't like Shauna and people like Shauna, to be honest. It's just selfish. But Jeff reacts, right? He's like this really midlife crisis type of territory right now. And he's like, well, let's go do something spontaneous in Virginia. And as they're going, they hit somebody who was purposely trying to get hit. But I love Shauna grabs the gun, right? Don't mess with Shauna here. And of course, Shauna is worried about Callie's old toy that she probably loved more than she loved me. And that's when Jeff's like, when she was 6. So Jeff's even like calling her out for like her being like wildly immature as a parent, thinking that her daughter liked her doll more than her at that age. But I love the payoff with that line, because I love that Shauna brings that doll over to Callie later when she gets it back. Because like I said in my previous review, Shauna's character growth and the change she needs to happen to protect herself with this Adam stuff is getting on good terms with Callie, making peace with Callie. She does not want to strain that relationship with Callie and then Callie be a loose end. And you see in Jeff's breakdown here, though, in this like midlife crisis, trying to change, be more exciting. He's trying to be this tough guy with Kevin at the gym. It's just not Jeff. He's not being himself. But it's important that Kevin tells Jeff that he knows Shauna was having an affair, that someone had told him that. So that's going to really probably spook Jeff and Shauna when he tells Shauna that. We know it was from Callie. But Shauna, I really loved her tracking where this minivan was. This was very Walter White moment with Tuco in season 1 of Breaking Bad. And she's like, have you ever peeled the skin off a human corpse? Not as easy as you might think. Ooh, gave me chills, that line. I love it. People are always so sweaty when you kill them. There's a look people get when they realize they're going to die. It's that one. And she's like, my hand wasn't shaking because I was afraid. It was shaking because of how badly I wanted to do this. This is some great writing. I love to see Shauna being like this in present day, and a lot of this season to me thematically is like the past coming back to all of these Yellowjackets in the present day. It's coming out what they were like in the wilderness more and more, and that Shauna is coming back, that killer Shauna, that Shauna will do anything. And again, I was talking about how it really is showing you that anti-hero Shauna is in that present day, and we're seeing in the past obviously, but really leaning into it here, which I thought was really fascinating and interesting. And it's going to be interesting to see. Jeff sees that the van's back and he's like, how'd you get the van? We'll see where Jeff reacts to that and how he's going to react to this type of Shauna. But that was definitely a stronger part of the episode for me. But for the episode as a whole, this was a little bit of downgrade in quality to compare to the first 2 episodes. I'm giving this one an 8.2. Like I had said, it wasn't crazy about the Randy stuff. That just didn't hit for me. And I also think the Ben stuff wasn't as necessary as it should have been, or we should have learned more new information about Ben in those flashbacks. So I get what they were trying to do, but this episode as a whole just wasn't amazing, but still very good. It's still Yellowjackets. It's solid. I'm giving it 8.2. But I think at the end of the day, when we look back at the show, this will be one that's a little more on the forgettable side. But let me know what you thought of this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment. I try to respond as many as I can. Please make sure to subscribe to always one of our reviews of Yellowjackets. I also do celebrity interviews, and I'm reviewing Succession at the moment. Please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more of me. And I'll see you next time.